Hello everyone, it's Dr. Bhairavi, the Sky Priestess, and welcome to your latest live. So, today we have an extremely special topic. A topic which I would say has probably been running about in my soul for lifetimes. And it's finally time to talk about it. So, for those of you who know, we are seeing a new moon in Sagittarius today, at a very, very special point in the skies, namely the Galactic Center. In the Western Tropical System, that's 27 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, those of you who are familiar with the Vedic system will know that this particular Amavasya is conjunct the Moola Nakshatra. And that is precisely what we're going to talk about today. So for some context, I know that a lot of people expect me to do Vedic astrology because of my cultural background, and they may be quite surprised when I don't. And there's a reason I don't do it. I know their calculations are better in many ways, but the interpretation and the epistemology of that system goes against the grain of what I stand for in my path with the sacred feminine. Now, what I'm going to do is I've already got the text prepared, but a little while after I upload this video, I'm also going to attach it to the text, which gives you detailed sources for everything that I'm saying. So everything that I'm saying can be backed up with something, apart from what has been my personal experiences with this. So, and I also want to emphasize, I'm someone who comes from a genetic connection with astrological temples and temple builders, and I'm someone who comes at this from a place of respect, not of degradation. So what I say, I want you to take in that frequency with that intention. So the first of all, the Moola Nakshatra is ruled by a goddess named Nirtti. And she, if you look in Vedic astrology, is known as the goddess of misfortune, destruction, decay. And most of the more straightforward interpretations basically tell you that Nirtti's energy is all about negativity. If she's in your chart, if you're born under the star of Moola and you're a woman, you bring misfortune, your mother-in-law's going to die and all kinds of stuff. It's a fear-mongering energy. But that is not Nirtti's fault. And again, this is based on scripture. When you look at the scripture, Nirtti is said to have emerged from the anus of the patriarch Brahma. And for them, that is the Galactic Center. Now for me, that epistemological choice already limits the scope with which and the lens through which Vedic astrology can see the feminine. Because when I kept reading this, and I've been reading this for a long time and just waiting for the right time to do this video. And I know this will trigger some people, but like I said, I got my sources in the article. So when you look at the functions associated with Nirtti, they are the functions of excavation, of release, of decay, of removing what is awful. When you look at different Vedic texts, she is basically the kind of energy you want to chase away from the home, chase away from positive ceremonies or auspicious events. So all in all, people have been taught to fear her, and they have been taught to fear women in particular born under that nakshatra. And so this has actually created a lot of damaging and harmful stereotypes within India itself when it comes to reading astrological charts, especially for women with this sign. And in the article that I'm also going to link, I actually found another Tamil woman like myself who is also writing about this, but she's focused on some of the damage that these stereotypes can propagate. But let's get back to the scripture. So why is it not acceptable to look at the Galactic Center as a galactic butthole? It is because the Galactic Center as a frequency and an energy is an energy that is not just about destroying the old. It is a black hole after all. But it is also an energy that creates. Spiritualists or people who really tune into the skies and a cosmic and etheric level will know that when anything aspects the Galactic Center, it brings with it a possibility for profound transformation and creation. And this is something that the Vedic system cannot imagine because you can't do much with an anus. But when you actually look at the text and you look at, wait a minute, So if I get through all of the so-called misfortunes and all of the so-called obstacles that Nirtti poses, what can I do with this energy? That's when they say new beginnings can come and you can actually overcome. So when you have this energy, what do you do with it, and where does this sudden renewal come from the part of the body that is supposed to be entirely about the excreta? That's what doesn't work. So what I used to do, especially when I would travel around, travel all over the world and do workshops, what I used to do is I used to give people the experience of this process of dying, excavation, release, and clearing. Not just to leave them there, but to give them the experience of what then comes next. And so there is an entire aspect of this goddess's energy that is ignored because of that epistemological choice. So people who have been looking at this, I'm not saying I'm the only person who's saying it, people who are in Vedic astrology have tried to look at this and made the most of this, saying, hey, it's detachment that will lead you to spiritual awareness. Yes, but that's only half of the equation. That is the best definition that I've seen there. The other half is renewal. And when you think about it, which organ in the body or a body map is capable to hold and release, to destroy and create? Ultimately, that comes back to the womb. And even Mayan understandings saw black holes as essentially galactic wombs, not anuses. There's a very big difference. So when you see that there is a huge shift between the two, that then opens up the possibilities for Moola. Because we don't start with our bottoms. Well, yes, whilst the embryo might start in its formation that way, we start because there was a womb to hold that energy in the first place. So if they had envisioned the creator deity as either female or intersex or what have you, they would have associated Nirtti's power with the womb rather than the butthole. And this is something a lot of people will not accept because they'll say it goes against scripture, but you have to look at the facts of what this energy brings to you. And when you look at the rulership of the Moola Nakshatra, it is ruled by Ketu. Ketu is associated with a bunch of deities. One is, of course, Ganesha, because Ganesha gets decapitated, Ketu doesn't have a head, and so there is an energy that is said to stabilize the root. Another being that is associated with the Moola Nakshatra is Lord Hanuman, because Hanuman was supposed to have been born under the same star. In fact, Tamils are celebrating Hanuman Jayanti, which is Hanuman's birthday today. Another being associated with the Moola Nakshatra, but not worshipped, is of course King Ravana of Lanka, who was also born under the same star. Though I would not recommend, asking him for stuff. But the fact that Ravana and Hanuman are said to be associated with these energies show that this particular energy is one that can create, that can destroy, but that generates immense power. But what is also interesting is that there's something that Ravana, Hanuman, and Puliyar or Ganesha have in common. And that is in their relationship with the goddess Kali. And Kali is, of course, one of the major deities that one can basically appeal to reduce or mitigate the effects of Ketu, who is supposed to be ruling over the Moola Nakshatra. Now, the three of them have a relationship in different ways. One, when Ganesha or Puliyar first lost his head, Parvati nearly destroyed the universe by becoming Kali. It's basically his mom. Two, when we look at Hanuman, there is a version of the Ramayana in Bengal that actually indicates that Hanuman became accepted by Mother Goddess Kali as her Vahana. And there are other narratives up north, which are in northern India, that are not, I haven't yet found the codification for it, but apparently you see him very, very present as at her temples, as he is accepted as a guardian and a protector of her temples. And the third, and this is very interesting, Ravana's Kula Devi. Kula Devi means ancestral goddess. Ravana's Kula Devi was known as Nikumbala Devi. Nikumbala Devi is known as Prathyangira Devi, the lion-headed goddess, and she is the Adarva Veda Bhatrakali, the Bhatrakali that deals with the removal of black magic. Now you may go, well, Ravana was not a good guy. Why did she support him? Well, here's the thing. At the time when Ravana's son Indrajit was supposed to go and perform a particular yagna that would have ensured his victory against Lord Rama, the ceremony itself was interrupted. And at least according to one source, the choice to interrupt the ceremony and the fact that the interruption was allowed was a decision by the goddess, because his son was not acting in alignment with the principles of Dharma. So in all three cases, we see that there is a relationship with Kali. Kali is very similar, if not equivalent, to Nirtti, and they have overlapping functions with other so-called dark goddesses that have been much unnecessarily maligned through the lenses with which Vedic astrology understands the sacred feminine. Whether it's Jyeshta, the wife of Saturn, whether it's Dhumavati, the Mahavitya, whether it's Bhairavi, one of the other Mahavityas, whether it's Kali herself. See, this is the thing. A lot of you who are introduced to Kali are being introduced to her outside of a cultural context. And I don't mean this with any disrespect whatsoever, but unless you've actually had to live through the weight of thousands of years of patriarchal conditioning and to navigate through that, you don't know the weight of what Vedic interpretations have upon a person's psyche. When they are told from birth that they are unlucky, that they are not worthy because of a star that they were born under, or when they are told that they are going to bring misfortune, when they are told that you can't even have an image of Mother Goddess Kali in your home because she's going to hurt your family. These are the kinds of superstitious beliefs that patriarchal interpretations of astrology have interpreted, which is why I come back to the original point. The root of the cosmos, the root of a galaxy, is not a patriarch god's anus. It is a womb. And in reclaiming the role of the Moola as the womb, we can actually open up an entirely different way of understanding the root. Whether it's the Moola Nakshatra, whether it's the Moola Dhara, which is of course the root chakra, or whether it is simply the concept of Moolam as in base or foundation. When we understand that our foundation is not just in ourselves, but is actually still connected to that maternal principle, our understanding and experience of spirituality transforms. It will never be the same if you truly understand what I am saying. So much so that, subsequent understandings of the root have always been about foundations within the self. Some people will say ancestors because they're wise, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that. So at this time, especially as the new moon conjuncts the Moola Nakshatra, I want you to focus upon that area, which is around the anus, but not because that is the place, but because that is one of the key. The anus and the navel are, of course, key positions in fetal development. I want you to focus on these different body parts and centers and see what you can remember and see what you can feel. Now, for some of you, this is going to bring up a lot of trauma, especially if you had significant birth trauma, if you have a not so great relationship with your birth mom. But just remember, we all came from a gigantic spiritual mom. Focus on this energy in those ways if you cannot access this through bloodline and ancestry for whatever reason whatsoever. And everyone can access this. I'm not going to say that everyone with a womb is necessarily going to connect with this, because a lot of people have wombs and do not connect to its spiritual potential. And a lot of people who don't instinctively connect to it because they realize that maternal connection is still there. So at this time, at a very practical level, I would urge you to focus not just on the biology of what you have been taught to see as the root, but really to be looking at that spiritual foundation that allowed you, me, everyone born through a mammalian system to come into existence. And that was, of course, the mother, the primordial mother. Which is why, as I briefly shared on Instagram, this is an amazing time to be doing any kind of prayers or rituals to beings such as Mahakali, such as Lord Hanuman, such as Lord Ganesh, such as Prathyangira Devi, which is the form of Mahakali who refused to allow the Ramayana from taking a different turn because she stood on the path of Dharma and justice. So these are various different avenues that you can look at. Now, the energy of the Moola Nakshatra and the Galactic Center is extraordinarily important, not just because it is your spiritual foundation, but really it is the place in which your path can be changed, your path can be determined, your contracts can be burnt to a ground. And that is why it is so important for you to be looking at this time. And so doing my part as the Sky Priestess, will of course be doing community prayers, and everyone is included as usual, and I will tell you when I am done so that you can, tune into it and see the benefits that you can reap for yourselves. And that is a wrap, my dears. As I said, I will be linking the article to this fairly soon, which will have references that you can look at for yourselves. So take care, very many blessings, lots of love to all of you, and cha-cha for now. Bye-bye.